You're listening to the Home Staging Show podcast. I'm your host, Cindy Lin. This is a show where we talk about all things real estate, home staging, and selling your home to live and to sell. Welcome back to season 6. This is episode 8. Our show is brought to you by our in-house product, EcoJo, the eco-friendly St. Joseph statue home selling kit. In real estate, there's a tradition to bury St. Joseph statues for good luck. But because the existing products on the market were made with plastic, we made an eco-friendly version named EcoJo. He's all natural, won't harm the earth. We're currently having a 50% off sale on our website. For more information, you can visit www.ecojokits.com. That's spelled ECOJOEKITS.com. This podcast is also brought to you by our Cash in the Cushions business courses for home stagers. If you're thinking about getting into the home staging business and not sure where to start, our Level 1 Launcher program is designed for those of you who are thinking about venturing into the home staging industry. This 90-page workbook clarifies frequently asked questions about starting a home staging business. It's also going to help you navigate the waters of the marketplace so you can avoid the common slip-ups. Our signature course, The 6-Figure Floor Plan, is designed to be a business in a box where I help you take out the kinks and guesswork out of building a profitable home staging business. We have one module a week for 6 weeks. You're also going to have the opportunities to ask questions and get support in our weekly office hours and private community. You can also upgrade the program by adding on a coaching package where you're going to receive additional support for your business after our course finishes. So in this jam-packed online course, we're going to go over systems, contracts, pricing, proposals, inventory, marketing, technology, and everything you'll need to start getting clients and book yourself solid. I'm going to show you the behind the scene of how I have built my home staging business from the ground up, which includes using worksheets, systems, scripts, and workflow that I've developed to build my business and also test it through my home staging business. You're also going to be able to see my pricing proposals, contracts, and basically every template I've ever created and used in my 6-figure home staging business. The course goes live August 8th and the seats are limited, especially the coaching package. There's only 2 spots left for that. You can find out more information about the course by going to our website, stagemore.com/6-figure-floor-plan. Hey guys, welcome back to season 6, episode 8. I'm really happy to have Lauren on the show today. She's a real estate agent based in Portland. I really love the conversation today because we started off talking about real estate transactions and then we really got into emotional triggers for buyers and how to attract buyers to love your house. And it's pretty juicy conversations. We really talk about different generations and how they behave differently, and then also what are some of the common money pitfalls that sellers have as well. And in the beginning, it might sound a tiny bit dry since we're talking about the logistics of real estate transactions, but I do love the conversations that we got into later on as well about emotional triggers, generation selling. We even talk about Twilight, the vampire movie. So I also want to give you a few updates on the show as well. We're fast approaching to the end of this season. We just have 2 episodes left, and I'm super excited and super honored to have 2 of our home sellers on the upcoming show. They're going to share their experiences of staging their home themselves, the challenges they faced, and all the things that they have to go through to put their home together and get it ready for market. And both of them have done their 30-day home staging challenge as well, and you may also have seen them in our private Facebook group. And I also want to give you a little bit of the update on the behind the scenes of the show. So this past couple weeks, I've been interviewing producers to start handling the post-production. So it's going to be a better listening experience for you guys. I've been a one-woman show all this time for the past almost, a full 6 seasons. And it's been pretty tough, particularly in the past couple weeks, since I'm in the process of liquidating our 5,800 square feet warehouse full of staging inventory. We're subletting out the space. We're also starting our 6-figure floor plan course this week. I'm moving out of country in 5 weeks. I'm also taking French lessons, intensives. So it's been very, very crazy, and I'm not able to put in as much energy in pretty much every area of my life. Especially, I really want to market the show and also research and really find awesome guests that just full of expertise that you guys will love. So, and especially stuff like, putting out the show on time. For example, like today's show is actually a little bit late. So, dealing with the technical difficulties and editing the episodes and stuff. So I just really want to make sure that we're putting good content out on time and also have really good consistency in general in terms of quality. So that's really my goal for season 7 and the future seasons as well. In the next 2 episodes, you may start hearing some minor differences because we're in the process of handing off the post-production to a producer. So we're going to make some adjustments behind the scenes to make sure that we're going to keep putting out great content for you. I'm also really open to ideas for programming. So if there are specific topics you want to hear about, please let me know. You can leave a comment on the show notes or comment in our private Facebook group. Also, if you're new home stagers in the industry and you're interested in signing up for a 6-figure floor plan class, that class is starting next week and the enrollment is going to end. We actually I didn't really talk about this in the sales page, but I made a secret module 0 and that is live now. So if you sign up for the course now, you're going to get access to that right now. So that's it for today's updates and introductions. Without further ado, let's start the show. I think a lot of people don't really understand what real estate professionals do. They just see really what's on the surface. I know real estate agents do a lot more than showing houses, writing offers and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff behind the scene that I think sellers and
I just saw this chart that someone had posted online about like all the things that we do under, in a transaction, and I was like, oh my God, that looks like a lot. Is that true? And I looked at each and every item. I was like, yeah, okay, yeah. I was like, good Lord, that is, yeah, that's all true. There's a lot to it that no one sees.
Yeah, so do you actually want to talk a little bit about that since we were talking that already? Because I think most people don't know what real estate agents do in a transaction, because there's more than just researching listings, researching competitions for your seller's listings. You also have to deal with stuff like inspections and appraisals.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, there's everything, I could take it from beginning to end, but, there's all this stuff behind the scenes that, going and letting inspectors in or stagers in, or, depending on if you're on the selling or the, the buying side, and, calling the lender 1,000,000 times a day to make sure things are smooth and coordinating, hey, you should call that person. Like, you're kind of the hub of all the things. I had a principal broker once, and she had a great analogy. She said that like a real estate transaction is like a big old dinner party, and if it's supposed to be like, okay, we're eating dinner at 7, aka the closing date, but each person is bringing one thing, and it's not just potluck. It's like this person's bringing a table, this person's bringing one chair, this person's bringing another chair, this person's bringing a fork, this person's bringing the carving knife, and if you aren't all there at 7, then no one can eat.
That's a great analogy, actually.
Isn't that great? Yeah, it was. I totally stole it from her. And so that's true. It's like I'm the person coordinating, making sure that everybody talks to each other, everything goes smoothly, even if you on the consumer end don't see it. I'm the person calling the escrow officer and going, hey, we need to have a courtesy signing in a different state for this buyer or seller. And yeah, it's interesting, all that little stuff that goes on that because it's just every day, that I didn't even realize that I did sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a lot. And then do you want to just talk briefly about the process, maybe from beginning to end? Like what?
Do you want to do it on the buyer's side, maybe?
On the seller's side. So
on the seller's side, right?
Once you get a call, say, from a homeowner saying that, hey, I want to put my home on the market. So what do you start doing?
Well, first, we have to do the CMA, the comparative market analysis. So, for instance, I go over to the house and kind of walk around with a clipboard and, mark things that all the features it has, everything from, is the plumbing updated to how cute are the paint colors, like, and everything in between. Like, okay, like I need to know both the assets and the deficits of a house, so I know what I'm getting into. So you go around and you just kind of, you really just look at that house inside and out as much as you humanly can. And, you start having the conversation of like, okay, do you want to put it on as is? Are you willing to do a little bit of painting? And I always tell everybody, in the very, 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 very least, we need to get rid of pretty much all clutter. Like, even if it's putting it in boxes in your basement, if you want to get a pod, however that it's going to be. If you're going to live there during it being on the market, you basically have to pretend like it's a hotel, which is hard. There's a lot of conversation that you have with sellers. It's such an emotional thing. If you're living in your house, not the same if it's a rental, for instance, but if this is your house, this is your home. This is your, this is where you've raised kids, or this is where you've been in love, or you've had heartache, or there's just all this emotional thing, places that we live. And so for me to come in and be like, okay, that's a really, really cute so and so vase, but it needs to go away. It's a hard conversation to have. So I have a lot of conversations. That's like even just day one, like, let's talk about just starting to clear this out. So that's step one. Then I go and I do my I go look at comps, comparables, and see what has been sold, and then do a bunch of research and look at features and adjust for different size or location, and then I suggest a price. And then it's usually a lot of, once I suggest a price and they go, okay, that sounds great, we're going to put on the market on so and so date, then it's a lot of the homeowner working their butt off trying to get their house ready for market. And that they'll like, I'll I'll come over with little like colored stickers and be like, put the colored stickers on the things that I want to stay, like furniture wise or decoration wise, if it's going to be their stuff. And then I've also actually had stagers come over and either they'll consult and be like, you should paint this wall this color if you're willing, or you need to move the couch over here. Let's get rid, like I have a listing coming up and they're going to get rid of everything in their living room and dining room. They have babies and cats and dogs. And so they're going to put all that stuff in storage. They're not getting rid of it. And then the stager's just going to stage those two rooms, and why they keep their stuff in the bedroom. Make sense? Like, so, and then I'm coordinating, landscapers sometimes, and, we'll get painters, or we'll get, it's just all these little things. I mean, the last listing I had, there was we had a handyman, movers, stagers, house cleaners, landscapers, and I was the person, because the seller had already moved out, so I was the person, coordinating it and making sure everybody was there on time and all that stuff. Go back and forth on getting the house ready and what we need to do, and then when it gets closer to the date of the listing date, we do put on all the finishing touches and make it look as beautiful as humanly possible. It's rough if you're living in the house, because you basically have to make it look perfect all the time, which, when you're at least me, when I'm living, my house doesn't look perfect all the time. And then, we get photographs. I always get professional photographs. I never would get, I don't think I'd ever do, no, I know I would never do my own, professional photographs. Make all the difference in the world when these days it's all internet looking, so that has to look the best. Put your best foot forward. So we get photographs, and then we list it. And then I usually do, open houses. And I actually tell, for the most part, if the seller's living in the house, I'm like, okay, I'll list it, midweek or end of the week. And I usually am like, why don't go out of town, go to the beach for the weekend. You know what I mean? So then, if possible, it's really great because then potential buyers can kind of have unfettered access to the house for the weekend, that the first weekend that it's on. Don't have to worry about coordinating showings. They can just show it as if it's vacant for those couple days. And then forever how long it takes to get some people. I'm in the background doing all kinds of marketing, whether it's reaching out to other realtors, doing sponsored ads on Facebook and Instagram. I mean, the list goes on and on for the marketing. It's kind of a lot because the point is to get it out in front of everybody, as many people as humanly possible that would be potential buyers. Then hopefully we get an offer, or in best case scenario, multiple offers. If it's multiple offers, it's a lot of coordinating and trying to leverage the best offer for my seller, talking to the seller and seeing how we're going to do that. And then once the offer is accepted, well, actually before the offer is accepted, I'm going and doing my research. Does their offer look good? I usually call the lender that the buyer is using, if it's a lender, and basically interview them and get some information and get a feel if that's going to be a really good offer, a solid thing that's going to get all the way to close with financing. I'm talking to the buyer's agent also to kind of get a feel of how that's going to go and kind of prep my seller for all of those things with the listing. And then at this point, it kind of slows down a bit. For listings, it's a lot of before we get an offer accepted. So when we get an offer accepted, making sure everybody is kind of on this timeline. We have inspection periods, and we have disclosure periods, and all these timelines during the transaction that we need to make sure everybody is on board with doing that in a timely manner. And that includes, the buyer's agent and the seller's agent talk a lot. And I think that, for all the times that the buyer, the seller hears, about the transaction, I would say that the buyer and the buyer's agent and the seller's agent probably talks twice as much as you'd ever think. We're constantly on the phone, things from like coordinating, hey, or on email, here's the inspection schedule. Let's make sure that the buyers and their inspectors have access to the house during that period. And what questions do we have? If there's anything on the preliminary title report that needs to be looked at, let's coordinate that. Let's talk to escrow. During the inspection periods, if anybody's bought or sold a house, that's kind of a stressful roller coaster. If something's wrong with the house, anything major, and then negotiating repairs or credit, that's a stressful thing, because trying to bring two parties together in a negotiation that can sometimes be very far off is hard. But keeping a cool head, the agent's keeping a cool head, even if their clients are absolutely stressed and really upset, is really, really important to making things go well. Sometimes a sale will fall apart and we have to go back to market and start all over again. And if it doesn't, then we get through the inspection period, and then we have to go through appraisal. And as a listing agent, I try my hardest and to always meet the appraiser. But the appraiser is the person basically that is going to go to the house and for the bank basically and say, yes, I think this house is worth what you're paying for it, or above or below or whatever, which is a very, very important part of the sale. So I take all my comps that I use to price the house. Make sure to have our contract, sales agreement, any pertinent information, and I meet the appraiser at the house during the appraisal and make sure that he or she has all that information in case, they miss something, and they can see where I was coming from on the price, and make sure that all bases are covered there. It's a really important part. If we don't meet an appraiser there, then maybe for whatever reason they miss a comparable sale, and then that can really mess things up. So after that, the appraisal comes back. Hopefully it comes back as we hope. After that, it's kind of the lender's thing, and we kind of coordinate signings for our sellers to sign the paperwork. Then hopefully be able to hand keys over to the buyers on closing day. Then I go and make sure that coordinate a coordinate to make sure my seller is out and the house is in good condition. There's staging. All the staging is gone. I make sure that my sign is gone. The lockbox is gone. The house is in really good shape to hand over to the new homeowners. I think that's it.
I have a quick question about
Yeah.
the appraisal part. So
Yeah.
what if the numbers come back and it's lower than what the listing price is, for example? Like, how do you deal with that?
Okay, so we deal with that in one of a few ways. You know, if it's low, if it's low and they're like, I'm like, okay, well, I guess I can see where you're coming from. I mean, sometimes I can fight it, but it's actually pretty rare to be able to successfully do it if it's crazy. If it's low, we can go back to the seller, and this is a negotiation point. We either say you need to, let's say it's $5,000 low. I'm just going to use that number, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the buyer either has to bring in that extra $5,000 in cash. So so we keep that sale price. Like, let's say, we sold it for $400 and it came in at $395. So they still have to give us the $400. So they'd have to bring in that in cash instead, like in addition to their down payment. We could drop the price $5,000, just and say, okay, fine, we'll drop it $5,000. We could drop it $2,500, and then the buyers bring in $2,500 extra of cash. Any of that, basically anything to make up that difference, in any combination. Or that's a chance for the buyers to say, like, if we can't come to an agreement, if it's like 50,000 low or something like that, and we're just like, no one's going to budge for whatever reason, or they budged but not enough, and it's, the buyers might not have any cash. There's all these scenarios that is a way, if the appraisal comes in super low, that the buyers can also back out of the sale and still get their earnest money deposit back.
That's really interesting. So basically, whatever price the appraiser said is pretty much the final sales price?
It's not the final sales price, because let's say the appraiser said $395, but we agreed at $4,000, and if the seller is like, no, we agreed at $4,000, I still want $4,000, that's still the final sales price. It's the $395 is like, that's the what the bank is like, hey, we think it's worth this. And it's weird. It's come back like $1,000 difference sometimes. It's come back like $20,000 difference sometimes. There's been a few times where I'm like, no, and then I go and I'm like, well, you didn't see this comp, and and that comp that you're using with a lot of weight is like 4 miles away. So, but it's always hard to go to someone whose profession you're saying, you're kind of doing it wrong. I mean, that no one likes to hear that, period. So you have to be really careful there. So it really depends on each situation. I think that's the thing about real estate that, I just told you a kind of end-to-end thing, and there's so many variables in the whole transaction that, I would have never seen coming. Like, it's interesting, realtors that have been in this for 20 years, they're like, wow, I've never even heard of that. Like, that's the kind of job this is like, there's something new where you're like, what? What just happened? Okay, so let's kind of find a solution for something I've never heard of and no one I work with has ever heard of. So let's get creative and kind of solve. It's just a lot of problem and puzzle solving, So there's all these scenarios that you just are constantly having to adapt to and be the expert on. You're like, okay, well, I've never seen it this way, but in this situation, I would do this. So, okay, yeah, all right, this makes sense. And so, you just have to adapt quickly to the different situations. There's personalities and situations and different, money and all those things involved that makes everything a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, exactly. And also humans are involved, emotions are involved.
Exactly.
Which makes it even worse sometimes.
Yeah. Add humans, emotions, and then, a huge purchase, and it's a very emotional thing. It's funny, like I actually really like the emotional part of my job. Like I actually have I'm all about the analogies. I had a client a couple years ago, and I always, at my first meeting, I'm always like, this will be a roller coaster, but I'm with you the whole time. And And so we were in the middle of the inspection period, and we were trying to negotiate repairs, and it was stressful. You know, we found out some stuff in the inspection that were kind of big, and we weren't expecting. And but they really loved the house still. And you know, the woman of the couple, she called me just crying, and, you know, oh my gosh, this is, you know, I'm freaking out, you know, oh my God. And so I kind of talked to her, and I was like, all right, totally okay to freak out, but let's talk this through. And, you know, she ended up hanging up the phone and calming down. And then she called me like the next day, and she was like, so I have this fear of flying. And whenever there's turbulence on the plane, like, I basically am convinced that we're dying, and I am waiting for the oxygen mask to, like, fall down and for us to crash to Earth. Like, it doesn't matter if it's the tiniest turbulence or not. Like, I just assume we're all going to die. She goes, but a trick that I've learned is during turbulence, if I look up and the flight attendants are still serving drinks very calmly, then I don't freak out. It's only when they freak out that I'll freak out now. And she's like, so you're basically my flight attendant, and you haven't stopped serving drinks this whole time, so I'm not going to freak out anymore.
That's really funny.
Isn't that great? I was like, yeah, that's about right.
That's
I'm
really
also
funny.
another funny little thing is I'm actually a captain. Like, I have my captain's license for boats. Mm-hmm. And whenever I get on a boat and I'm talking to newbies that have never been on, you know, if it's a really, really, really nice day where it's not really windy and we're all just like, it's like chill, you know, I'm like, you don't have to wear your life preserver, but it's here. But I'm like, my joke is like, if you see me putting it on, you definitely should put yours on.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, how did you get into real estate?
I had a really good friend when I was quite a bit younger, and she's been in real estate forever. And when I was even younger, she was like, oh, you should get into real estate. You really like it, you'd be good. And I was like, no. And then I moved away from Oregon for about 10 years. And then when I turned 30, I kind of freaked out and, sold everything I owned and broke up with a boyfriend and quit my job and jumped on a boat and headed south from California. And then I traveled for about 4 years. And I lived in Mexico and England and delivered sailboats all up and down the coast. And then I kind of hit a wall of traveling, and I was like, ooh, I really don't want to live out of a suitcase anymore. And I don't really, you know, I miss my friends and my family, and I'm missing like births and weddings and, you know, these big life events, and, you know, time to come home. So I came back to Portland and kind of was, you know, I was like, oh, well, I didn't really have a plan for coming back. So same friend was like, once again, you really should get into real estate. You would love it, and you'd be really good at it, and it would be ever-changing enough that you wouldn't get bored. And I you know, it was funny because I definitely was like, don't tell me what to do. Well, like, you know, like a child does. She's the one who I first started with, and she was my mentor. And so she was like, no, just do it. And I was like, well, I don't, you know, when I quit my corporate job, I really decided I didn't want to be, you know, like pretend like I was this like conservative, shoulder padded wearing person, and I don't really want to do that in real estate. And she basically was like, then don't. She was like, the great thing about real estate is like the more authentic you are, the more people of your tribe you're basically going to attract as your clients, and it's just going to feel like family the whole time. And it was the best advice. So, you know, I am my sailor-mouthed weirdo person all the time, and I have great clients that I feel like everybody feels really comfortable with. So that's how she hired me into her company, which was awesome, and she mentored me and taught me to be a great realtor, and that's how I got into it.
That's amazing. And so how long have you been in real estate already? 4 years. That's great. And so so you do both selling and buying side, correct?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And what are some of the most common misconceptions that you see that home sellers may have?
A lot of the stuff that I do is they think that it has to be I don't know, there's some that I remember just going and looking, we're going through a house and like, tell me what to do. And we'd like make a list of, projects to do until to put it on. And like, they were like, oh, well, we definitely need to fix this. I'm like, not at all. By the time someone gets to this part of the house, they either love it or hate it. You know what I mean? It was like this dent in this chain link fence way in the back corner of a lot, and I was like, put your money and your energy in so many other places that are going to be so much more important. You know what I mean? Like I think that is something that I come up a lot on is people are like, oh, I really feel like I should do this. And I'm like, no. In fact, I actually tell my clients after they buy, I'm like, don't do huge, like, just talk to me before you sink money, like, into the house. You know what I mean? Like, I have a couple clients and, they're like, oh, we were thinking about doing this. And I'm like, I mean, you can do it, but I'm going to tell you it's not going to make your house very attractive when you go to sell it. You know what I mean? Like, that's the part I'm always looking towards is like, how marketable is this going to be if it's in a down market, for instance? You need to be the best house on the block, if the market's flooded with other houses, period. And it doesn't mean you have to be the best house on the block because it's the biggest and fanciest. It just, has to have good decisions in decorating or, in remodels or stuff like that. So,
what happens, I often find that it's probably harder to sell if you are the biggest and most fanciest house on the block.
It depends on the block. You know what I mean? Like, it really depends on the block. Like, I live in this little neighborhood, and every house on the block is this little 2-bedroom, 1-bath, cute little bungalow style. These huge houses are going up, and they're selling. And I think it's interesting. I think that, all these 2-bedroom, 1-baths are fine in this neighborhood, for instance, but people want to live in this neighborhood with kids. And if you have more than one just tiny baby, that's too small of a house. So I don't necessarily, it depends. I think it depends on the block. You know what I mean? Like, it's all, at least, so I'm in Portland, and we're really neighborhood, like, centric.
I think what I meant is that, let me rephrase the question. So what if a seller has put in way too much improvement into the home, and they're not getting their return on investment back?
Right.
I think that happens more often than not.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, I think, and that's that's true. Like, if you're going to stand out as, like, all of a sudden you're a mansion, like an actual mansion, next to, like, people, people that want a mansion don't necessarily want to live next to all these other tiny little houses that are, maybe people that are first-time home buyers. You're going to have a hard time selling that. That's true. Also, another thing is like, especially if you've done a bunch of updates, like what I tell people, which another reason why I tell people that my clients that own the house, I'm like, they're like, oh, we want to add, let's say an ADU in the basement, and it's going to cost $100,000 to do that. And they're like, cool, so I'll be able to sell my house for $100,000 more than it's worth right now. And I'm like, no, actually, it takes quite a few years to get that money back. You know what I mean? If you were to sell it. And I think that's the hard part is there's like some saying in real estate, like the only improvement you can do that actually will immediately increase the value of your house is painting the front door.
Really? That's it?
Yeah. Like, let's say you put in new windows for $30,000. You can't turn around the next day and ask for $30,000 more than you would otherwise. You know what I mean? Like, all those things have to kind of season and appreciate for some years. A kitchen remodel. Good Lord, how crazy expensive kitchen remodels. They're like, I haven't seen one done for under $30,000 in a long time, and that's for a tiny, simple one. It's
expensive.
Crazy.
It's
so expensive. I keep like looking and being like, I could put $30,000 and remodel my kitchen, or I could take that $30,000 and contribute to a down payment on a rental. I'm like, I'm going to do the rental.
So in terms of return on investment, like, let's say your client they bought the house, they feel like they're going to live there forever, so they invest in the kitchen remodel, for example. How long realistically would they get that money back? Or is it you never fully get your investment back?
That's not true. I think, you know, and there's actually whole charts on this that I think that, oh God, like home improvement places have done, and maybe real estate places have done about what that is like the percentage of return on investment. But like, you know, it really depends on of course, this is all generalization, you know, because it depends on the market. It depends on the location. You know, that's the thing about real estate is like you can have these blanket statements, but you have to look at it so much deeper than
So there's also like
so,
how much work they did and what kind of materials they used.
You know, like do you do an IKEA kitchen, which I have no problem with at all, or is everything custom made cabinets with, you know, the highest quality this and the blah 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 blah? You know, that's going to take a different time to get that investment back. But you know, I would say, I mean, 5 years on like something like a kitchen remodel or something like that. But let's say they did that kitchen remodel and then the market turned down, and it would be way longer than that. So that's why I don't really like to like box anybody in and say a number and then be like, oh, here's my 5 years. Now where's my money?
No, I understand that. I think one of the things that I think sellers do, like, you know, because they, you know, when you buy a house, you think you'll live there forever, right? So they were like, well, this is my forever home, so I'm going to go all out.
It's like 5 to 7 years. It's
right.
Literally like no one, and that's the thing is I keep trying to tell like at least my first-time home buyers that I'm like, the statistics say that you'll live here for like, maybe it's 7 to 10. I don't quite remember, but it's somewhere between, it's like 7, give or take. And their eyes get all big, and I'm like, literally the only generation that lives in the house forever are, you know, kind of the grandparents, and, or maybe the older parents, you know, like especially with millennials. I'm like, you know, you didn't, the house that you maybe grew up in wasn't maybe your parents' first house, you know. So yeah, like, so that's the thing is like that's a conversation that I have with my buyers specifically a lot is, you know, this is your house, but I'm going to look at it as your investment, even though you're looking at it as your home. And let's talk about when you go to sell it, if it's not a super hot market. And that's why we talk about the renovations, where I'm like, talk to me, call me up after you know, when you decide to start doing things, and give me a call and get my opinion. You know, if I can help you and be like, oh my God, please do not put that jade green tub into your bathroom.
Right. Yeah.
Because you may love it.
At all.
You may love it, and this is no, I don't want to like tell you your taste is horrible, but because it's not. It's we have to look at it in, you know, will the most people in the world fall in love with it? We can't really necessarily, what happens if you have a family member that's passing and you have to sell the house really quick to get back home to Wisconsin or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, then we need to make that house desirable to everyone that we humanly possibly can. And that's the whole part of it that is a lot of, for the sellers, is like when you're making these decisions in remodels, that's kind of, you know, do it to your taste, but in the back of your mind, I hope that you're going, okay, well, I'm not going to stay in this forever. So we do need to make it, you know, vaguely pleasing to the most people.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think the more unique your house is, the harder it is when you're going to sell it.
Absolutely.
We've seen that on staging side as well. You know, like people put in, like I have those client ones, they had, I don't know why they love television so much, but they literally had a television in every single room of the house. That's like kitchen, every bathroom has a bathtub where you can watch television.
Whoa!
I know, all the bedrooms has one. I don't know why, but they love television. But those are kind of the customization that most buyers don't really So I mean, like, it's normal to have a television in the living room, but to have
Right.
it set up in the bathroom just to watch television, it's very rare.
Oh yeah, and to go back to the thing is like, home buying is a super emotional thing for the most part, unless you're an investor. But for the most part, it's, you know, if it's a first-time home buyer or, you know, not a first-time, like, people are projecting their hopes and dreams onto this building, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to raise my kids here. I'm going to take care of my aging mother here. I'm buying this house as a divorcee, and this is the first thing I'm going to make my very own that I've ever had my own. You're projecting all of these things on a roof and floors, and if you are trying to project your life's dreams on something that's not a blank canvas, it's almost like you all start getting like negative feedback, and that's where that comes in of like, as much imagination as we'd love to have, you walk into exactly a bathroom with a TV, and that triggers the fact that your ex always watched TV, and then all of a sudden you hate it and run out of the house.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it is very emotional, and I think yeah, it's like when you're looking for a house for rent, right? I think a lot of sellers kind of forget, because they've been living in the house for so long, they kind of forget what house hunting is like. You know, it's like, when you are buying or renting, you're basically trying to imagine how your life is going to be, living in this neighborhood, living in a particular house, you know, like how your day-to-day life is going to be, and how this house is going to help to make your dream come true, right? Because you have all these, like you said, like all this hope and dreams basically attached to this process. Yeah. And so, like, it's really important for sellers to kind of tone down whatever customization they might have put into the house for their own enjoyment, because now the target audience has shifted. Like, it's no longer about the seller, it's all about buyers now. And so I think that sometimes can be a difficult conversation to have with seller. So.
It really is. I mean, but it's, you know, it's one that, it's funny. My friend Kat calls me the love bully. the love bully, yeah. And it's like, you know, I have to go in and like kind of be like, no, but with such love, like, you have to do it with such love. You know what I mean? Like, this is really beautiful. I know it means a lot to you, but we need to put it in a box, or we need to paint this wall or something. And that's hard to hear. Listen, like, who was it? Like, a really good friend came in and looked at something that I had on the wall, and she was like, I would never. And I was like, hurt. And then I was like, yeah, but it's not your house. And that's, you know, like, oh, it's so true, you know, like, it's what it is. But it's funny because I always, when I have buyers and we're looking at houses, this is funny. We go into a house that someone's living in and really hasn't put any effort into staging, and it's their house. And you feel like a stranger invading someone's space. You want to get out of there really quick. The emotional feeling is like, I'm spying on someone, and you feel uncomfortable and a little bit guilty. Mm-hmm. And you want to get out of that space kind of quickly. You go into a staged home. Maybe it's staged with their stuff, but you can tell a professional stager has come in and been like, all right, this is what you do, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, it's so funny. It's the buyers literally sit in the furniture, and you can see, like, all of a sudden they don't want to run. They don't, like, they're like, oh my God, this is so, like, they're just, oh my gosh. And I turn to them, and I'm like, this is staged. And they're like, I feel like I could live here, because all of a sudden they projected this, right? And I turn to them and I go, when you go to sell, remember, you wanted the house with the staging. And I don't want to hear it when I tell you to stage it. You have to do it. And we always laughed at, like, yes, Lauren. And I was like, but it's really, like, remember, staging works. You wanted to, when it's someone else's house that hasn't made any effort to, like, basically completely strip it down of personality, which is sad, but you're able to put your own personality on there so much quicker. And that's what sellers need to do, is, like, understand that it's all of a sudden not about them. It's literally all about the buyer and what the buyer is going to feel. The buyer doesn't know you. The buyer is not going to care about your, amazing collection of vintage lighters that is covering a whole wall. I mean, they'll be like, that's cool, but emotionally they aren't going to be able to project themselves on that.
I'm really glad you brought up that point, because I think most sellers don't realize that, first of all, and I also think that the whole process of selling and buying is very emotional. It's emotional on both sides. So I'm really glad,
oh my God, yes,
that you brought up this projection thing. And it's kind of funny when you talk about how the buyers have to be able to imagine themselves living there. It just reminds me of this article I read. It's like analysis of the Twilight novels, like why they're so popular. Because if you read Twilight, for example, like
I did, yeah.
The description of the main character, the Edward, the main guy, is like very specific, but the description of Bella is very like vague. So basically, it's designed for you to kind of imagine yourself as Bella.
Because it's just this like blank canvas that is super fascinating.
Yeah, it is basically any woman can put themselves into Bella. There's no description about Bella really. It's like very vague.
Yeah.
So that's why
that's really fascinating. I'm totally gonna take that and use that. It's so true. Like you just want to be Bella now, and the buyers, you want to make sure your house is Bella, like kind of bland and nondescript, so you can. Everybody wants to be there.
Fall in love with it. Yeah.
Fall in love with it. Yeah. It's
so fascinating. Yeah, I think a lot of real estate really comes down to like these really psychological things.
Oh my gosh.
And you never know what trigger people may have. It's sometimes people that make things a bit more difficult. But I think that's our job to make it less complicated. Hopefully.
I it's funny because I know some realtors that hate that part of the job, and I really I embrace it. I kind of dig deep into okay, that part of and that's what I'm saying, that TV thing, oh my God, my ex-husband would never stop watching TV. I can't have a house full of TVs. It just reminds me of this other life. I'm trying to create a life that doesn't, I'm not even going to have a TV because all I'm going to do is go out and ride my, my motorcycle all day or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's such, all these things trigger, and especially if your target is kind of a first-time home buyer, this is really interesting because when I'm selling, when I have buyers that are first-time home buyers, they've rented their whole lives, so they even have less of an imagination. All they can think of is they aren't even going, oh, I can paint that wall, or I can knock down that wall, or I could eventually add a window here, because they've only had to conform into their rentals. And so they're even less, just because they've had to be less imaginative. If they were more imaginative in their rental, they'd just be miserable. They've had to conform to whatever rental they've been in to make it as good as they possibly can. And now that they're buying a house, it's really hard for me to coach them. Not really hard. I mean, I do it, but I'm like, okay, let's switch your rental to buyer. You go in and they're like, oh my God, I hate those red countertops. And I'm like, you can change those. And it's really hard for someone to kind of shift that whole paradigm of what you can do and what you can't do. So if you're a seller and let's say your market is probably going to be first time home buyers, you need to be even more vanilla.
I think that's a really good point, especially, most people look at homes on the internet now. So if the buyers have zero imagination and they look at that countertop, they're like, oh, I hate that countertop. And then they just click and they go to the next house.
Exactly. And it's not even, I don't even want to say it's no imagination. It's that I think, they do have an imagination. It's just that because it's so emotional, I think it's almost this weird mental block all of a sudden, where you normally have imagination. Although it's funny, I have a bunch of, architecture clients. They're architects, and I love them because they walk in and they're so used to taking a space and just being able to, in their mind, make it however they want, that
Mm-hmm.
it's fascinating. They're like, oh, we can take down that wall and put that over there. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, wow, I never even thought of that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I took courses in interior design, and then one of the first thing the instructor did was like, so we're gonna redesign the space, and you need to change the way the door is. And I think you're right. I mean, because I think in staging, I always joke that staging is a bit like Botox, but I don't do nose jobs. I only do like superficial stuff. I don't do like break down walls and stuff like that. So it was actually very liberating.
Yeah, I love that Botox, not a nose job thing. That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's like it was really liberating when like someone tell you like, hey, you can actually change even where the door is. You can like break down this wall. It's no problem at all. So like I think that's the same thing with buyers who are not used to that environment as well. Especially when you're renting, you're so restricted. Like when I was renting,
so restricted.
I couldn't even paint the wall.
Yeah.
Like I had to repaint everything back to vanilla box color when I moved out, kind of thing. There was no customization. Everything was get approved. So,
and so if you're looking for a rental and you're touring renter houses as a buyer, and you go into a rental and one room is bright pink, and then you hate the color pink for whatever reason, you can't, and they're not going to allow you to paint it. You're like, I'm not going to rent that place. So you're already in that mindset. Even though you're buying it now, you forget, like, even if you're told over and over you can paint it, like you've already walked in and you have that initial gut feeling like, ew. Even though you're like, and there are, of course, some people that are like, oh, I'll totally paint that. Like, I love the layout, blah, blah, blah. The bones of the place is great. I can totally paint this. But that initial, it's all about, for sellers, when they're selling, you want each of your buyer to walk in and either they feel they relax or they gasp because it's so beautiful. But if their initial, they literally walk in and they're like, oh God, whether it's a smell or something like that, you're just gonna, you're gonna lessen your market.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it takes a very special person to override that initial gut feeling of that wall's ugly or this place smells like cat pee, or you know what I mean, like that first, like, really what am I saying, like you can't control the uncontrollable, like, initial gut feeling that is just completely subconscious. To override that takes special people.
Yeah, I agree. It's very difficult. Especially, I think you brought a really good point, is that in an unstaged home, when the homeowner is living there, like, you do feel like you're intruding, and you just
so
subconsciously
weird.
want to get out. And then when your buyers start feeling like that, it's kind of a lost cause at that point, because they want to leave. They don't want to see the house. They just want to leave. And
I'm not saying that, like, I've had, there's plenty of places that, the people have lived there, but you have to live there like it's not your house all of a sudden, which is really, that doesn't feel good. You know what I mean? But do it. Most people have to live there. They can't, why they sell the house, but it has to be pretending like it's a hotel or something like that. And that's the feeling that people are going to be like walking. Because most people walk into a hotel and be like, oh, cool. All right, cool. Put your suitcase down and we're good to go. So, and that's the feeling that we're going for, because this really is all so much about feelings, unless it's an investment, of course, totally different ball game. But the majority of houses aren't, and condos aren't investments. They're primary homeowner kind of stuff. So
what would you say what today's home buyers are looking for? Are they always looking for turnkey homes, or a specific trend that they're looking for?
It depends on the generation. But yeah, this is interesting. So my generation, I'm 37. My generation, like, and older, are, and this is just my observation. I don't know if this has any actual merit to anybody else or anywhere else in the country, but my observation is my generation, a little bit older, are like more willing and open to, we go into a place and be like, oh, I can rip out that carpet and do this and blah, 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 blah. The younger generation they really want turnkey. And then, of course, there's the retirees that are like, I already did a remodel. I'm not going to do that anymore. I want to go and, I did that for the 2 houses before. I want to go and not have any maintenance. I don't want a yard. I don't want to do anything anymore.
I don't want any stairs. I don't want any hills.
Yeah.
Just, flat.
Yeah, exactly. We're looking at aging in place, which is really big with, the baby boomers, and I love it. So it's interesting. It's to me, I'm seeing it depends on the generation. It really does. The younger really, those new houses or the ones that are flipped, that are flipped and staged, and of course that are priced correctly, they just fly off because it's a Pinterest board come to life.
Oh my God, I love that.
No, it really is. It's a Pinterest board come to life, and most of the younger generation, my generation and younger, literally spend so much time on Pinterest that they just, it's just in their mind of what it is, and then you walk into this place, and it's exactly what you've, imagined, and you're like, yeah, give it to me. Give it to me right now.
Yeah.
Give me 4.
It's very characteristic of their generation. It's all instant gratification, giving now, and they're very influenced by the online activity.
Yeah, so. And I don't have any, I don't actually have any problem. I'm honestly, I grew up, we'd move into, really rough houses. We'd fix them up as, a 6-year-old, and then we'd move on to the next one, and, living in a construction area, having to do your dishes in the bathtub sucks.
Yeah. So
I don't blame them at all.
Yeah. But I think that's a really good point, because depending on the generation, especially maybe if your house is in the area where a lot of millennials are buying, then you need to stage your house like a Pinterest board, because that's what sells right now. But if you are in an area where there's going to be a lot of seniors buying into, then don't put staircases in your house.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah, and you can't really, it takes so much money to change a staircase or whatever. But if you're going to be marketing to a retiree or, something like that, and you are, you don't have people, let's say someone that's in their 60s, they've been around the block enough to be like, oh yeah, well, I know I can change this. That's not a big deal. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, they've lived in a few houses. They've already done that. It's just different.
Yeah.
Well,
interesting.
Yeah.
So what would you say, what is the number one reason that a house doesn't sell?
Price. If it's priced too high. If it's priced too high, yeah. I'm going to bring up that whole Zestimate, the Zillow estimate and the Redfin. Someone gets an email from whatever site saying your house is worth this much, and I go and I'm like, that's fine, but they haven't been inside the house. They don't know what the market's doing. You're not willing to do the work that's good. You know what I mean? It's creating unrealistic expectations for sellers. And so they have this price in their mind. And when I come back and go, I only have the comps. I've been inside of your house. I know its advantages and its disadvantages. And this is the price that I think would be competitive. And they're like, no, it's fun. I always tell, once a buyer has a price in their mind, they've already, and this is including myself. This is not, a seller has a price in their mind. This is including myself. Let's say I think my house is worth $500,000 because Zillow's told me, and then in my mind, I've already spent that money. I'm already looking at houses that are worth so much after, I sell mine. And then for someone to come in and be like, actually, because I'm a human and not a robot that's given these algorithms this price, and I know the market really well, I know what's going on in your in your neighborhood, and I know how we're going to market your house and to whom it's only worth this much. I literally feel like you're taking money out of my pocket. Like it feels like you're by that time it feels like you're stealing from me. And I
think
that's
really harsh, but I understand.
It's harsh. It's harsh. It sucks. If I have a price in my mind, I've already spent that money in my mind. Like whether I am realistic, whether I'm like, I'm super realistic and I understand blah, 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 blah. If someone's told me this number, it's in there. It's like this little worm it's just gotten in there. And then someone else comes and tells me a lower one that is like, this will sell and this will sell competitively. It feels like you're taking money from. It feels like you have your hand in my pocket and you're taking wads of cash out.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Portland, it's things are going fast. So if they're priced well, so we have this thing where if a house is priced too high, no one is going to put an offer on it, and it sits on the market for a while. And because things are going so fast in this crazy seller's market right now, if you have a buyer that's like, why is this house been on the market for a month? They have this whole thing, well, if no one else wants it, I don't want it. Like, what's wrong with it? All of a sudden it has this like weird gloom to it, so that's my whole take on it.
No, I think that's a really good take. I mean, I ask that question pretty much every time when I have a real estate agent on the show, and everybody always says pricing, because that's true. And I think a lot of sellers get stuck on it. They're like, no, my house is worth so much more. But
and also, of course, it goes back to the emotion. I have put my heart, my blood, sweat, and tears into this house. I brought this tile back from Indonesia that was made by an artisan by hand. It means the world to me. It was given to me by my dead husband's mother. You know what I mean? But that, you're putting an emotional price on something, and I'm like, well, that doesn't increase the price of the house at all in reality.
Right. I think that's a really good point. It's an emotional price. It's not
an emotional price.
I hate to sound so dollar and cents, but when you're selling the house, it is coming down to dollar and cents. Because buyers are not, their buyers aren't going to have the same emotional attachment to the house as you do. For them, they're just going to be like, that's just tile. That doesn't really mean anything to me.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if you have a little sign by this tile saying, this was handmade by my auntie in blah, blah, blah. And, they're like, that's cute, but I'm not going to pay $20,000 more for it.
Right. Exactly.
Right. You know what I mean? And then once again, I'm going to bring up the whole Zestimate kind of thing. Like, that is an algorithm, and algorithms don't buy houses. Humans do.
Right. Exactly.
There's really no way around that.
That's a really good point.
Who knows about the future?
No one. So, yeah. So what's your number one advice that you'll give to people who are thinking about selling their house?
God, number one. Ooh. I have a whole, barrage of advice. Number one advice.
Say it all. It's fine.
My number one advice is listen to the advice I give you. And mostly, for the most part, my sellers do. They're sweet, and they, there's an intimate relationship between a buyer or seller and your realtor, because you're letting this person into your home to tell you, boss you around about it, right?
Sure.
And then basically kind of take over, and they're all of a sudden involved in, your family's investment and your family's future, and they're really intimately involved in all these things that you wouldn't tell another person really, you know, of where your finances are or where you have to move because of this thing. And, you know, a sickness or like it gets really intimate really fast. So there has to be trust.
Mm-hmm.
And for my clients, pretty much all of them, you know, like we've already gotten to the point where they trust me and they know that their best interests are always very, very first. Even if their best interest doesn't feel that great of like, yeah, you know, we need to paint this wall over this mural that you spent a lot of time on. And I'm doing it so you can sell your house, so you can get a better return, and you can get into the neighborhood of the school that you want. You know what I mean? I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this with your best interest at heart. So it's that trust, you know. You know, if totally gonna toot my own horn. If you have a good realtor and you trust that they're doing everything with your best interests in mind, then I think that's huge, you know, like you're like, this is uncomfortable. You know, I tell, I've totally gone on a tangent. I tell all of my clients that, you know, I'm like a coach, like you hire a coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
They work for you, but then they turn around and like make you do things that you don't necessarily want to do, make you kind of push your boundaries a little bit. You don't totally love them all the time, but when you're up on the podium with a gold medal, you're like, okay, cool, thanks. Okay, I got it.
Right.
And that's
the
goal, right? You know what I mean? Like I am hired, I work for you. Like let's not, I want to make that very clear, but I am here to coach you to the best possible scenario.
And I think that's very true because I think sometimes it's a bit frustrating where the sellers hire you and then you give them your expertise and then they're like, yeah, I don't want to listen to you because it's not what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Then it's not really, I mean, then, well, first of all, the seller is wasting everyone's time. Yeah. And second of all, they're wasting money. They're basically, they're leaving money on the table, and they're also wasting money by hiring someone to come out to give them advice that they decide not to follow. So that is hard
It is hard. It's really hard. I mean, we're going to just come back over and over again. It's an emotional thing, you know, and everybody's got their emotional baggage, including your realtor. You know what I mean? Like, and it's all out on the table, and it's not an easy thing. And everybody just tries to be sensitive about that.
So that's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't left a review on iTunes, please do so. We don't generate any income or sponsorship from the podcast, so it's very time consuming to do interviews and edits and all that good stuff. So if you enjoy the show, please do leave a review. It not only helps us establish our credibility to get more awesome guests, it also encourages us to keep going. And as usual, feel free to ask any questions on the show notes or in our private Facebook group. You can find the show notes by going to www.stagemore.com/podcast. So that's it. Have a fantastic week and happy staging.